Hi, you're listening to the Album Review Podcast. Today we're talking to Ray Brown and Tony Kiley. We're going to be listening to 3 tracks taken from the album Looking for Vincent, the Radar Brown project. A collaboration of musicians but led by Radar, aka Chris Bynum, and Ray Brown. Ray, before we go ahead, the title of the album, Looking for Vincent, can you shed some light onto that?
Looking for Vincent is something that Radar and I always talked about. We came up with the concept, I think I probably did, but we were always saying, where's the special ingredient? And I'd always loved the way the track Vincent makes me feel. I can't listen to the track Vincent all the way through. It comes on the radio. I know everybody says, it's been on the radio for years and we're used to it. Starry, Starry Night, when it starts, I can't listen to it. As a musician, it just takes me somewhere. It's so brilliant, so clever. It brings out emotion in me. So what we used to say was, is that track good enough? Is the lyric good enough? Where's the Vincent moment? Hence the name of the album, Looking for Vincent, because you can look for it, doesn't mean you find it.
Now, Tony Kiley, a very important man behind this album. A drummer, producer and recording engineer, a member of the Blow Monkeys, and a touring musician from the Illegal Eagles. Hi, Tony.
Hi.
So what were your thoughts on Looking for Vincent?
When Ray approached me to record and mix and master the album, the first thing that he gave me was the title of the album, which I've never had that before in all my years of recording. They had a concept, him and Radar, straight off the bat, that it was going to be Looking for Vincent. He explained the story, what it means to him and everything. So that had a significant impact on how I approached the album. Everything had to live up to the expectations of Radar and Ray, because, that's a hard act to follow. Beautiful song, beautiful production, the vocals. So it had a major impact. Just the title had a major impact on what came next.
No pressure there then. So over to you, Ray.
Hi.
What's the first track you've chosen from the album?
Well, the first track I've chosen is Lennon's Eyes.
With Lennon's eyes looking back at you,
which we thought we'd actually get into trouble with copyright with. But no, we got away with it. Lennon's Eyes was such a funny concept. The whole album was written by my great friend Radar, Chris Bynum, and myself, and he was moving house during the writing of this. This is the second album we've done, the album we're doing now, Looking for Vincent. And moving house, he had a huge, great big portrait of John Lennon, which was done by a very famous artist. Radar collected her art. She draws and then paints famous rock stars, and he'd got several of these. But the biggest one was this picture of Lennon, and he had it facing him. He was staying at his daughter's while he was moving house, and he said, "I've got to do something about Lennon's eyes." So I said, "What are you talking about?" So he said, you've got to experience this. He said, "I haven't got the room for it." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "The picture." So he brought the picture round to me, because he said, everywhere I go in this room, it looks at me. I said, "Oh, so we're into the Betty Davis eyes thing, are we, following you around the room?" So he said, "Yeah." So as you can hear when you hear the lyric, it's writing itself, this song.
Lennon's eyes, they follow me round the room. Lennon's eyes.
As we're laughing, and this is how Radar and I wrote. We got together and we just threw ideas at each other, and we just talked. It's the most magical experience. These songs just came out of it. So they're all about real subjects, and it's about a painting that Radar owned. And very graciously, when he passed away, because he passed away during the making of this album, which was very traumatic for us both. For us, I mean Tony and myself. And Radar's family said they would like us to have the painting. And because Tony's got a studio and a big house, he said, "I'd really like to put the painting up." So you walked right past it as we came in.
What can I say? I feel embarrassed, foolish and guilty. I shall look forward to being gazed at by John Lennon on the way out.
So this was all inspired, and the video for this was all inspired by the painting. And it literally does follow you around the room. I think her name's Verity.
Oh, is this Verity of Verity Art?
Oh, yeah.
I was looking at her website, www.verityart.co.uk.
Yeah.
VERITYART.
That's the lady, yeah. Fantastic artist.
I'm sure this is the sign of a great artist, to make eyes follow you around the room. Tony, what are your thoughts on Lennon's Eyes?
So Ray presented me with all the songs, I think, or certainly demos of the songs with him and Ray Dowd that he recorded on his little Tascam. Is that a Tascam? Or? Yeah. And they were really good. You know, the songs didn't really need a lot of pruning and rearranging. They'd already worked on the meat of what the song was before I got involved. So my job was, well, my first challenge was, what am I going to bring to the table? You know, they've already done it. The arrangements were already in place. We never changed the arrangements because they were all on point. I like to cut to the chase. Everything's got to earn its place, including how many verses, choruses, middle eights, bridges. Everything has to be in the right place. And when I do pre-production, usually I spend more time on that than anything. This turned up ready to go. So that was a revelation. I don't know, maybe you and Radar spent a lot of time working on the arrangements and just, chopping out bits.
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
So I kind of focused more on the atmospheric side of things rather than the song arrangements, which is what I'm usually very good at, is working out the arrangements of the songs, but as they'd already been done. So I had to focus quite hard. And the thing that struck me about Lennon's Eyes was you're actually singing about John Lennon, or a painting of John Lennon, but it's about him. So what I brought to it was John Lennon. I put the John Lennon vocal effect on Ray, which is very significant for Lennon. And I brought Ringo. I played like Ringo. I played the drums on it, and that was what I brought to the table. If you listen to it, it sounds like Ringo playing drums, and it sounds like John's vocal.
Yeah, it must be said that this album is full of raw, real talent. There are no drum machines, there's no AI in any of this. So for one musician to play in another musician's distinguished style takes a lot of talent.
Yes.
And therefore adds a lot of class.
Yeah. Well, I got loads of vintage drums and cymbals on Lennon's Eyes. I think I put a blanket, a tea towel over the drums, again, a la Ringo, like they did in the 60s, just to capture the atmosphere.
Now, a little birdie tells me you put on your tutu for this one, Tony.
Oh, yeah. I do the Sugar Plum Fairy, don't I? Yes. There's a very famous counting that John Lennon does. Instead of saying 1, 2, 3, 4, it's on Come Together. John counts it in as Sugar Plum Fairy, Sugar Plum Fairy. So I put that on at the end as well as a reference.
You paint the pictures that hang on my wall. All a hero, rock and roll. It doesn't matter what you say or what you do. With Lennon's eyes looking back at you.
tell me, guys, in your search for Vincent, were there any unusual developments?
So, a really interesting development. So I'd recorded all the drum tracks, pretty much. We had demos of Ray singing and playing guitar and Radar singing. And the first things that we decided to do was put the bass down. So I knew Ray. We'd done a few gigs together and I've known him. But he's always played guitar. I thought somebody else was going to play bass. I'd lined up one of my friends to play bass, David Levy, best bass players in the country. I had him all lined up saying, these are the songs, yeah. I said, can I have a go? And I went,
Dave Levy.
yeah. And I went, okay, can you play bass? Yeah. Got a bass? Yeah. So we turned up, this is day one, first day of the recording session, where we're doing bass. Ray turns up and I can see he's a bit edgy and not quite himself, and he was drinking more tea, even more tea than normal. So we, up we go. And set him all up, got him nice and comfortable, sitting next to me, got a lovely old bass, and both got ideas. So I press record, nothing. Okay, all right, stop. Okay, you all right, Ray? Yeah. Press record again. Nothing. Not even coming in. Okay, so what's going on here? And then he just looks at me and said, I'm sorry, I can't play in front of you. You've recorded some of the best bass players in the world. I can't record in front of you. Oh, I had to put him in another room just to play bass. I'm used to the bass player sitting right next to me and we work on ideas like that. No, he couldn't do it in front of me.
I'm over it now. Come on. Can you imagine it? Dave Levy, God, look, for those of you who don't know, just look him up. And he's watching me. He's looking at, he didn't give me any quarter at all, right?
It's fantastic.
I did get through it.
Yeah. But you never sat next to me once. It did with guitar. You sat next to me with guitar. You were fine with that. It was just the bass. And again, part of your job as the producer is to make him feel comfortable. So
you failed.
Yeah. I put him in the other room and we couldn't even make eye contact. He sat sort of sideways onto me and hid from me. It was, yeah. But the ironic thing is, some of the bass lines were some of the most inspired things I've ever heard in my life. I don't know where they came from. We spent quite a lot of time honing it down and making them sound tight. And the actual ideas behind them were fundamental to the album, the way the album is. If you listen to it, Andy Billups played on a couple of the tracks and, he's one of the best bassers in the country again. Although he was a bit uncomfortable as well, wasn't he?
He was a bit, yeah.
Yeah, he took him.
Maybe the common denominator.
Yes, I'm going to say, is it me?
I did have every track I did. Yeah. The talkback, we were talking about talkback, was, shall I call Dave?
Yeah, I've got him on speed dial.
Dave Levy had done 2 tracks by now.
Yeah.
Have we rehearsed this?
Yeah.
I had it.
And the other thing was, write a bloody chart out, Ray Brown.
And the other thing was, I'm playing bass with Tony Kiley. Not only am I baring my soul and playing something I've written on an instrument that I'm, fond of, but it's not my first instrument.
Ray owns a bass, shall we say?
Oh.
He's the owner of a bass.
Yeah, like I own the van.
No, I jest.
He doesn't know it, but he got that out, mate.
Yeah, I jest. It was a challenging experience, and it was fundamental to the way the album sounds. And I'm really proud of the bass on it. I think it's one of the standout features, how unusual the bass playing is and the lines are. Not a lot of people would have come up with those ideas, so, it was worth the hard work.
Okay, Ray, what next?
So the second song I've chosen, and you must understand, the listener must understand if they'll bear with me, all of these songs were written in love and fun and happiness, but it was such a traumatic time because Radar was seriously ill and, in fact, passed away during the recording. And this particular song, the second song I've chosen, is Why Now, Sofia.
Why now, Sofia? When the summer days are long. Why now, Sofia?
Was originally called Why Now, Maria, and was written about Radar's lovely wife who passed away. And it was a poem, I suppose, from me about her, to her, I suppose. How the situation had gone as she passed away, which was very traumatic. But when we got to record it, Radar said, well, you can't call it Maria because I haven't told the kids that you've written the song. So a similar scenario to how, comes up in when you're writing songs, when it's very personal. What we're going to do, we'll have to junk the song. So as Tony was recording the song, he's saying, well, it's too good to junk. Come up with an idea, you two. So Radar just suddenly said, well, let's change it to Sofia. It worked. And sometimes in songs, you can be, like Lennon's Eyes is right on the money. somebody we all revere, the famous John Lennon. But this song was about somebody that we needed to alter slightly to hide that identity, to soften the blow. Sometimes you need to be right on the money. It's a protest song. Sometimes you need to allude to something. And that's the beauty of writing, that you can do that. So we saved the song, and Tony did this incredible arrangement and recording. God knows how I sounded like I did with Why Now Sofia.
Why now, Sofia? When the summer days are long. Why now, Sofia? When our patience grows so strong.
Which is a really happy up song, but it's about somebody dying, and that can be a blessing. That can be a blessing in songs. There you go.
Yeah. So, Why Now Sofia, or Why Now Maria as it was, Ray did a fantastic demo of that, and I thought, what could I bring? And I thought it had a Steely Dan vibe about it. And read quite a lot about how Steely Dan recorded and how they got the vocal sounds specifically, which involves a tracking up technique that Ray had never seen, triple tracking, and it involved singing the same thing 3 times on the chorus, the same thing. And I was able to pan, place it in a stereo field. There was a lead vocal in the middle and 2, one on the right, one on the left. When you listen to it in your headphones, you can hear it. So the vocal just spreads out. It becomes very lush, like Steely Dan. First time I did that to Ray, he nearly came in his pants. And the other thing about it was, obviously, the original title. Radar said, "Oh no, you can't use this song. I can't do that." I fought every inch of the way. I said, "This track's got to stay on because this is one of the strongest tracks, I think, on the album." The way that chorus just explodes. And Ray Brown played the best solo I think he's ever played in his life. We probably spent a day working on it, even though he had the basic idea. The way it sort of develops, the solo develops, again reflects on some of our heroes, Steely Dan. Anything from Steely Dan, those are big shoes to fill. Part of the recording process was developing sounds as normal. We used multiple guitars, multiple effects. But pretty much one amp, the best amp I've ever heard in my life. Ray's got a Music Man combo that lived in my studio for about 2.5 years, constantly mic'd up, just in case an idea would come. Because even after we kind of finished the tracks, Ray would come back and said, "I've got an idea," and it was always a guitar. He'd bought a new guitar. "What about this?" But it was all ready to go. I didn't have to re-mic it up or anything. The recording process was really simple. Everything flowed. A lot of experimentation, a lot of different ideas, including a sitar at one point. So I come from old school recording where I think what you put down on track is what you want to hear at the end. And I think it affects your performance as well, when certainly for singers, but mainly for guitarists, get the sound right at the source. Rather than me having to try and reimagine what we thought was right a year later, put it down now, and if it feels right, it's right. Commit. That was the key word of the whole album, was committing. So all the effects went down. We never really changed that. The fundamental drum sound on all those tracks is the kick and the overheads. That's it. Everything else just helps focus the sounds and maybe put it somewhere in the stereo field or in the front and back. But all the basic sounds, first thing I mix is put the kick up and the overheads, and then work with that. And then later on, I'll bring in the close mics if I think, oh, that needs a little bit of support. But that's fundamentally how I've always recorded every session I've ever done, and I've done a lot here.
He's gotta get out. There's no way that he can stay. It's all over the stairs. He sits by the mausoleum. His questions on a list, but nobody speaks and no one gives answers.
So the third track is Lovesick, which was one of two vocals that we managed to get from Radar during the recording of this album. As I've said, sadly he passed away. There would have been more vocals. What I wanted to do was get both of us to sing each song, and then we would maybe put the two together, or maybe choose, because he wrote some of these the same as I did. He had as much input as I did, and as a singer I'm all too aware that sometimes, even though I've written a song, you're not always the best person to sing it. So you should always try and listen, to someone else. Don't be precious, any of you out there. Get someone else to sing your song. You might learn something. So this is the second song that Radar sang on the album. The lyric was written by a great friend of mine whose daughter had passed away from meningitis at a very young age, 15 I think she was. And she'd written a lot of poetry, and her mum, my friend, approached me and said, my daughter, as you know, Emily Rose Pope, wrote some poems. Could you and Radar put one of these to music? We did a track for the first album, but this one we used, and Radar and I wrote the tune, and he just took to it. Radar just took to it, and I have to say, it sounds dramatic, but with his dying breath, he recorded the vocal.
Thank you, Ray. What a lovely collaboration. Tony, what are your memories of this?
So, my favourite track on the album, Lovesick, on a number of levels. Me and Radar bonded over this track. We both had the same experience of losing our love of our lives around the same time, and the lyrics obviously reflect how we both felt about losing our partners, and it was one of the most challenging experiences was recording the vocals for both of us. I took a deep breath. I'm sure he did as well, because the lyrics just reflect the way that we both felt at that time. We did 2 takes, and that was enough I thought the plan was to come back and redo it. I just, this is, recording Ray Brown is one thing, Ray's best singer I've ever worked with and ever recorded in my life. Radar he wasn't a singer until very recently. He was very, very good, but it was a different experience to recording Ray. But it was so emotional. I think I said, I can't do this now, we have to stop now, because I'm crying, he's crying, and Radar then within a couple of weeks passed. So that's what we had, but it was pretty much one take. The second take, I think I comped 1 or 2 words, and that's it. That's how we got the vocal down, and the rest of it, whenever we put any of the overdubs on the guitars, and we'd have to look at each other and say, okay, deep breath, you know what's coming, but we've got to get through this. So, charge yourself, because it's going to be difficult, and it fucking was difficult.
None of us had ever done that before, had we?
No.
You couldn't remember, and I'd certainly not done it before. We've got to do Lovesick now, but put some guitars on, which meant we've got to listen to Radar sing it.
And
the last thing he sang.
Can I just say as well that the vocal performance is outstanding. It's absolutely every word he sang there, he meant. It had a deep, deep emotional impact on how the song finished up, and I think it's beautiful. I think it's my favourite track, and I wish he was here to take part in this interview. Yeah, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. That was a very, very difficult time, gotta tell you. So he was at all the sessions, all the first sessions. He was there, sat on the couch behind me, and literally it was a couple of weeks. I'm not feeling very well. He hadn't been feeling very well for a while, but he was pressing on, and he went in and was diagnosed, and he was gone in 2 weeks. And then Ray would come in, and we'd sit down and look around, and he's not there. I don't know how he got through it. I think it was therapy for him, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'd still struggle to listen to it now.
My heart been broke, I still hear the words we spoke. At night I see your face. For me, it's out of place. Out of place. My loneliness stays strong. I still listen to our song. Our bed is empty and cold. Your scent stale and old. Stale and old. Stale and old. Your love, you made me see it wasn't to be. My thoughts just sicken me, yet it's only you I see. My heart been broke, I still hear the words we spoke. Words we spoke. I see your face. I see your face. Close my eyes. Close my eyes. Close my eyes. Close my eyes.
So just one more thing, where can I get Looking for Vincent?
Also, all of our albums are available on eBay. If you search for Looking for Vincent CD by the Radar Brown Project, you can buy it direct, a hard copy from us. And also, it's available to stream on iTunes and other platforms.
Thank you very much, Tony and Ray.
Thanks, it's been an absolute blast. Bye. Thanks a million.
And thank you, listeners. That's all for this review. If you'd like to get in touch, email us on arp.podcast.album.review@gmail.com.